Hello, I welcome you once again to another session of Agricbiotech and food security. We have indeed deliberated on a number of biotech related matters in the last couple of weeks, but certainly not on climate resilience and adapting agriculture to the changing environmental conditions, which is very crucial. And that's where we go today on the show. Climate conditions or climatic conditions no doubt dictate not only whether a plant will grow, but also how the plant grows and the plant's yield. And of course, you know that yield stability and quality are also closely connected to the climate. The truth is that climate conditions cannot be adjusted to suit agricultural requirements. That's the more reason why climate change, for instance, affects agriculture in a number of ways, namely changes in temperatures, rainfall and climate extremes with impact on soil erosion, changes in pest diseases, and of course changes in atmospheric carbon dioxide, nutritional quality of crops, and declining agricultural production. There is a technology that could mitigate and navigate through such environmental situation, and that's biotechnology. Experts are saying that it could reduce dependence on agrochemicals, particularly pesticides, through the deployment of genes conferring resistance or tolerance to biotic and abiotic stresses. We shall dig into all of that as we unfold today's package of the program. I am yours in science, Kirian Umayyah. Thank you for tuning in, and please stay with us. And our guest today is Professor Wang Dong, former president of GSN. Joining me on the program today is Professor Emmanuel Kwandung. Professor Kwandung is a professor of plant genetics and breeding with the Federal University of Latvia, that's in Nassau State. Professor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we are going to be looking at a very crucial aspect of Agricbiotech and food security, and that has to do with biotechnology and climate resilience, adapting agriculture to changing environmental conditions. We cannot change nature, we can only adapt to it. Now, what are the technologies necessary for us to adapt to environmental changes that will also enable us to grow agriculture? That's our main focus on the program today. So, Prof, let's begin to understand the concept of climatic change. Let's give it a definition so that our viewers will have a good understanding of that concept.
Yeah, climate change has become a contemporary issue that we all must face. And as a definition, climate change is a prolonged changes in the climatic conditions, such as the rainfall, the temperature, the heat, and so many other associated climatic conditions over time. And we have experienced dramatic changes in the climate over time. And these are also affecting different changes in the performance of the agricultural systems. And nature cannot be changed, but we must also live with the changes that are taking place in nature in trying to adapt to how crops can be grown. And in terms of biotechnology approaches to these climatic changes, there are technologies that are adaptive to these changes. For example, if you look at the heat that is excessive as a result of climate change. Many crops need to be developed so as to cope with the heat situations. Similarly, with other abiotic factors like drought. Drought is becoming more severe because of the climate changes in different parts of the world. If you look at the Nigerian ecosystem, for example, the Sahel region is practically turning into desert because of these climatic changes. And the water regimes in these areas are becoming very, very severely reduced. So we must grow crop varieties that can adapt to this environment. So we need technologies like biotechnology to be able to adapt to that. There are other changes. For example, the pests and diseases are also becoming more of a problem because of the climatic changes. So these are biotic in nature. There are stresses of crops that are biotic in nature, but you discover that the climate change has made it more severe for how their prevalence is occurring. So biotechnology is a tool that can be used to be able to mitigate on the effect of climate change. So these are just a few examples. And the science of biotechnology has enormously contributed under these pressures to be able to bring up solutions, because we are using less of anything that we need to solve problems.
All right, let's talk about the issue of biotech application to, withstand the environmental changes that you have explained. We said adapting agriculture, or rather climate change resilience. That is the key word there. Now, are we talking about making a plant have the capacity to withstand climatic conditions as they emerge or as they evolve? Now, tell us the mechanism, involved in this biotech, that enables a plant to survive drought, for instance, which is abiotic, as you rightly put it.
Now, the maturity period for a plant, for example, is one factor in which biotechnology can be used to address the problem of drought. Now, a plant that under normal circumstances that will mature under 3 months can, through the application of the science of biotechnology, be selected through the scientific method of biotechnology to mature earlier, to such an extent that if the rainfall regime is reducing like we are having now, this crop can go under the condition of less than 3 months, and it is harvested, and it escapes the absence of rain that is likely to occur if it was under the normal maturity period of the plant. And this technology has enormously helped in addressing or combating this problem in some crops. Typical example in some of the northern parts of Nigeria, for example, where the rainfalls are just reducing to just 3 or 4 rainfalls in a cropping season. You discover that crop varieties that have been developed to accommodate a shorter maturity period, as well as the technology of even reducing the water use efficiency. That is, the crop's water use efficiency can also be scientifically reduced by biotechnology, so that the amount of water that is required for that plant to mature is reduced. And that has to do with the technique of making sure that the system in which this plant absorbs water they are all incorporated into the research. So these are practical technologies. Then in the area of precision agriculture, where you can even determine the quantity of water that a particular plant needs or particular crop needs. So that can be precisely done in such a manner that it will help in addressing that problem.
Now, in the Nigerian context, for instance, we have crops that are peculiar to us. Now, I don't know the number of plants that could be biotech engineered that can withstand these climatic conditions you are explaining. How many of these varieties that we have in this country that can do that if biotech engineered?
Thank you very much. A very good question. This technology, let me generalize, can be applied to every crop that we have in Nigeria. But the efforts so far by our scientists, they are progressing in different ways. And the interventions, unfortunately, and I must say this, the interventions are coming from foreign aided support. The national budgets, practically for agricultural research, are not enough to carry out the research on many of these crops. But in the area of collaboration with other agencies, some of our scientists have developed varieties which have been released. I have been a member of the Nigerian Varietal Release Committee, and we have varieties of cotton that have been released through Biotech, and they are resistant to the pests, and which means at the end of the day we have reduced spray costs for cotton, which hitherto was exposed to spraying regimes of 6, 7, 8, or even 9 times, being reduced to just 2 sprays, and that is a cost-saving measure for many farmers. Then we also have released varieties of cowpea, the popular cowpea variety that's resistant to maruca, which is also another aided technology that is promoting savings from the effects of diseases and pests. And coming down to crops like cassava, our scientists have equally been able to demonstrate biotechnology usage in biofortifying cassava to have nutritional qualities that hitherto will not be available under the traditional cassava that we use. So these are all technologies that are using the science of biotechnology to mitigate the effects of climate change. Now, under normal circumstances of breeding, a crop like cassava, which takes an annual basis to even get a report, you need about 15 years to be able to go through the process of bringing out a variety. So biotechnology has shortened that, and these are some of the few examples of the progress that our scientists have made.
That's something I quite liked. You said that precision agriculture, to be able to determine the amount of water or whatever nutrients in a particular plant. That's good enough. But now give us a difference between genetic modification and seed editing, or gene editing. All right. Is there any correlation in terms of analysis of a researcher? Is there any connection or difference between genetic modification and, of course, gene editing?
Yeah, in the case of genetic modification is where you just use science to interrupt nature to be able to get a desired characteristics. And this is the principle that is used in the production of all GMOs. And but in gene editing you just pick a particular gene, and then it is edited in such a way that the particular use that it will carry is determined by the desire of what the researcher intends to change.
Is that how you get all the varieties you are talking about?
No, gene editing is a relatively new technique. It's a relatively new technique, and all that we're talking about is mainly by genetic modification.
You are watching Agricbiotech and food security, and we have been discussing the issue of adapting agriculture to the changing environmental conditions. And our guest is still Professor Emmanuel Kwandong. Let's take a short break now. We'll be back in a moment. This is introducing a new TV series on agricultural biotechnology, one of the most complex and accurate scientific discoveries designed to provide sustainable food security for humanity. In the light of rapid population growth, Agricbiotech must be understood, accepted, and embraced to realize its full potentialities. Nigerian agriculture is vulnerable to climate change with associated occurrences, reducing agricultural production across the nation. But Biotech offers new tools for increasing agricultural productivity and protection of food crops. And from farmers, testimonies abound on the benefits of genetically modified crops. In this TV series, we shall be dissecting issues surrounding Agricbiotech with experts on its understanding, acceptability, and application, week in, week out. Join me, Kirian Umaya, on our show, Agricbiotech and Food Security. Be my guest, Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. on NT International. Brought to you by OFAB Nigeria under the auspices of NAFDA. All right, it's good to have you back. The program continues. I am still with Professor Emmanuel Kwandong, and we are discussing adapting agriculture to changing environmental conditions. And you've spoken very well about the climate change, and we have gotten to a point where Nigeria and indeed Africa are suffering from climate change, which was not caused by the African continent. Of course, we know the culprits when it comes to greenhouse emission globally, but we can see the effects of it. Some don't even believe that climate change has arrived, but scientists who are into research have told us that it is here with us. It's also affecting our agricultural system, and that's why we are having this conversation with Professor Emmanuel Kwandong. Now, we are expecting that the current administration will key into biotech. In fact, from all indications, the current administration is interested in science and technology. And if you happen to be a member of a committee drafted, to develop a roadmap towards engaging biotech fully, where are you going to start from? What will you be telling the authorities, with your expertise? How can we go all out to achieve this food security that is in question now?
Well, I would like to start by appreciating His Excellency, Mr. President, for his proactive declaration of a state of emergency on agriculture. It's a political statement that is encouraging to all of us as stakeholders. And I will look forward to a situation where the president can back this with the requisite support. Because there is no way we can continue like this. Because we need this technology to drive agriculture. The effects of climate change have demonstrated that we cannot run our research using the crude way we have been doing it. So if we are declaring a state of emergency on agriculture, the expectation is that there should be more funding for science and technology to drive agriculture. There are agricultural research institutes, there are universities that are carrying out research in this area, and there is need for a deliberate support. That we cannot shy away from the fact that we need financial support, deliberate budgetary allocations to be able to fund science and technology in a way that we can be able to compete with our contemporaries worldwide. Nigeria has all the potentials, the human resources are available, and all that the government will need to do is to be able to provide the requisite funding so that up-to-date equipments for research in the kind of technology that we are deploying to address these problems should be provided.
All right. Now, do you have a mechanism, by which you take into cognizance what the farmers are experiencing in the field? That's to be able to understand whether the varieties that you have are actually withstanding climatic conditions. Because of course, science is about knowing, and we need to know whether the varieties we've released so far are being used by farmers, are really resistant to climatic conditions.
Yes, the mechanism is very much in place because a typical example is the pod borer cowpea. I think I happen to be also on the membership of the National Stewardship Committee. And farmers, there is a mechanism in which a feedback, in which farmers are reporting very, very progressive accounts of how this technology has helped them to fight climate change as well as to increase their incomes. So it's in comparison to the conventional cowpeas that they are growing. So the feedback from the farmers speaks for itself, and the demand for this variety is unable to even be met. The request for seeds is so much that the Institute of Agricultural Research is struggling to meet up with the demand for the seeds. So it's really a proof that the farmers have accepted this technology and they are in need of the seeds. Cutting across the different geographical zones of Nigeria.
We have been talking to a cross-section of Nigerians on their understanding of agric biotechnology and its application, and whether or not the technology can assist Nigeria in food production.
I think in a world that has been crippled by a whole lot of things like Ukraine crisis, food security, or all of the COVID pandemic, I think we need something hasting in order for us to be able to generate so much food. So I think biotechnology is a very nice approach to that. I think we need something that can feed, like Nigeria now, there are over 200 million people. I think biotechnology is a very big concept that can help with that. So yeah, it goes, I think it's a very good thing.
Some will argue that biotech is not good for our health. So what do you think about it?
A whole lot of things is not good for our health. Like, I think this is the 21st century. And we are exposed to a whole lot of things, exposed to radiations. But I think there are a whole lot of ethical marks that those food would need to pass. So if they pass that, even if it is the 80% pass, and we are going to be getting genetic modified food, if we have food that is going to come out, like we have maize that we can get within few months, 3 months, 2 months, we are good to go.
All right. It is said that the environment doesn't need us as human beings, but we need the environment. When we fail to treat the environment properly, it usually takes its course. So there may be no remedy for environmental or climatic conditions, but can only adapt to technologies that could enable us navigate through any such conditions and still be able to practice agriculture for food security. We call it a day here, and again, thank you for being part of our show today. I am Kirian Umayo. I'll see you again next week.